So here we are for the beginning of my MRC Loco Genie install into my DC engine. I've got what I've become to call my project locomotive up here. It's the same locomotive that was in my LED light video. He's the same locomotive that was in my initial video for my initial how-to video for removing that silly little bar out of the Athearn Blue Box engines. I've also painted him. I've numbered him. He's locomotive 123. Going to attempt to figure out this Loco Genie install by following the directions. The first thing I'm going to do is unsolder my LED lights and the wires that I've installed into this locomotive. Kind of going to start with a blank canvas. So I'll set the camera up with a better view and watch me work. So we're going to start by taking desoldering my LED light assembly from the frame. And from the front pickup, since I'm heating up the front, I get a little bit more solder on my tip. Pull both of them off. Even going to desolder them from here. Might reuse these wires, so we're just going to stick them to the side. Gonna dig out some of my solder wick, clean up some of this solder. Don't care about it all. Just want to get most of it up. The same back here. Takes care of that. Next thing I need to do is pop the motor out carefully and not burn myself. Metal's still hot. Got the motor out. So, by following the directions, take my decoder and this nice little 8-pin connector they got soldered on, and we're going to chop it off. did such a nice solder job on it too. But here goes. 1, 2, put that in my spare parts bin. You never know when you're going to need it. So basically, I need to set up my right wheel pickups, which are here, together, and my left wheel pickups, which is the frame, together. So what we're going to do is I'm going to solder a wire from here to here, and then a wire from here, and another wire from here, I should say, so that these are together, and this can go off to my decoder. So I know it's a little hard to see my wires from here, but I basically have just one wire. Then I'm going to do both. We're stripped out the middle. Going to tin the wire. Like I said, just going to connect it to here. And there. I'm not worried because my extra wire will tuck. I'll pull the slide audible. I'm just going to solder red wire from the decoder right onto the pickup. So now we need to connect our black wire to the left wheel pickups, which in this case is the frame. So I'm going to reinstate my solder pad on the frame and solder that to it. So now you can see I've got my red wire going to the red wire in the decoder, my black wire from the decoder going to the frame. So I need to put the motor back into the frame, but I need to make sure it doesn't touch anything. So I'm going to cover down here with a piece of electrical tape, and I'm going to trim it as needed. Going to reconnect my negative wire from the light to the frame. other white wire is going to connect with my red wire. From my LED lights. Gonna find and put on a small piece of heat shrink. Just to protect those wires. Since they will be floating around. So we also have the orange and gray wires, which according to the directions go to the left and right, which in translation means on the actual motor, the bottom and the top. The right pickups go to the top, the left pickups go to the frame, which goes to here. Since this is going to be isolated, I'm going to put a small little jumper wire to bring it up here so that when we install, I can kind of keep everything up top. And the wires from the decoder are pretty easy to get. So we're just going to reuse a small section of wire I've already had out. Stick him somewhere where we're not going to get in the way of anything. Solder him right on there. Gonna install the motor back in the frame. Again, I've isolated as best we can. I'm gonna put another small piece of tape right here just to be safe. Hit you up again in a second after I get the motor in the frame. Okay, so I've got my motor reinstalled in the frame. Connect my, make sure we're doing this right. We're going to connect the right motor terminal to the orange wire. The right motor terminal is the top. So we're going to solder that right on. A touch more solder. Our gray wire is going to connect to the left wheel pickups, or I should say the left side of the motor, which would come from the left wheel pickups, which is the bottom one, which would normally connect to the frame, but we've since isolated. Stick another piece of heat shrink on here. Protect our connection. tin this wire. Put our heat shrink back over. So now our decoder is hooked up to our lights. Our decoder is hooked up to the pickups. Our decoder is hooked up to the motor. The brown wire. Let me read this again. The green and brown wire are accessory lights, which I don't have on here yet. The blue wire is the common wire for the lighting, which means I actually need to take this back off. Sometimes you gotta read the directions. I'll reconnect that to where I had it. Gotta connect a blue wire, which is a common, to the negative of my lights. Again, another piece of heat shrink. The handy helper over here. It's going to be a little crowded inside this locomotive. So we have a green wire, a brown wire, and a yellow wire left over. The yellow wire is for a rear light, which I don't have right now, but I'm going to have to add one just so I can use this wire. And the brown and green wires are for accessory lights, which I don't have at the moment. So I'm going to use some heat shrink to cap these guys off so they don't mess with anything. Actually, we're just going to use some electrical tape, make sure they're all isolated from each other and from anything else. Wrap one. Wrap two. Three. They are all wrapped and isolated from each other. Isolated from the frame, isolated from everything. Now we need a speaker. Guess what? They give you one. This should be the speaker output. I'm going to check with the diagram in a second. I'll give you a little bitty connector so you can put the speaker wherever you need to. Got some 3M, so I'm going to figure this part out. I'll get back to you guys in a second. So I'm going over the directions powered with this thing. You know, I haven't messed with anything DCC yet. I've been strictly a DC guy. They don't actually talk about wiring the speaker in here, which is a little disappointing because up until this point, directions have actually been pretty good. Now again, I'm going to go out on a limb and say I figured it out, but it's kind of a little disappointing they don't tell you. So what we're going to do, we're going to solder these guys together, get my speaker hooked up, we'll install it in the shell, probably towards the back of it. Love me some tiny wire. I have to do this by hand. Okay, so I actually forgot to hit record while I did that. But basically, speaker is installed in the back of the locomotive. It's connected over here. I'm going to isolate this one last wire. I'm going to isolate right here. Then we're going to neatly put this thing together, throw it on my test track, see if I can get it to work here. If not, we'll take it down to the lab. Now we're going to see if we get this thing to work. So we have to bond the locomotive receiver and transmitter. So we're going to put this guy on our test track, which is powered by this DC power supply over here. It says make sure all power is off the track. Install 2 AAA batteries into the transmitter. Remove and reinstall them since I already, put them in. Going to put the battery back in. The LED on the transmitter will begin to flash. Turn on the power supply. And the LED should stop flashing. So let's get the battery in. LED is flashing. Sounds like success. Well, it turned on, but it didn't seem to bond. Pop a battery out, try again. So I'm going to stop the video until I get this thing to work, and then we'll come back.